What if I told you that an MLB hitter's worst nightmare isn't a dominant pitcher? It isn't Cy Young frontrunner Tarek Skubal. It isn't facing an 106 mph fastball coming out of the hand of Aroldis Chapman. It actually is a stadium, a ballpark, the place where the game is played. This place has had more complaints by hitters than any other park in Major League Baseball. This place is home to some of the worst offensive performances the league has ever seen. This place is where hitters go to die. This place that I'm talking about is T-Mobile Park, otherwise known as the home of the Seattle Mariners. But could a stadium, a ballpark, really be this impactful to the game? The answer to that question is a simple yes, very much so. Hitters' numbers at this park in 2024 are on pace to break all-time records because they are historically bad. This park frustrates hitters in ways that not many people realize. Stepping into the box at T-Mobile Park as a hitter can be one of the most disheartening experiences in the sport because it is truly a hitter's worst nightmare. By the way, only 3% of you watching this video are subscribed, so if you enjoy it, consider subscribing. It's completely free, and you can always unsubscribe at any time. The best way to look at the effects of T-Mobile Park is to look at the hitters who play there the most. The Mariners hitters play half their games at T-Mobile Park and the other half on the road, so looking at their home and away splits should tell us the story. The Mariners' batting average as a team at home is just .207, which is by far the worst in the league. The White Sox are ranked 29th with an average of .222. Being that far behind the 2024 White Sox in any statistic is a pretty telling sign that something is up. The Mariners on the road have hit .227, which is still bad, but only the fourth worst in the league. Nowhere near as bad as they are at home. The pattern is the same when you look at OPS. At home, the Mariners have a .646 OPS, the second worst in all of Major League Baseball. On the road, however, they are the 17th best team with a .695 OPS. The craziest out of them all, though, is that the team strikes out nearly 30% of the time at home, which is nowhere close to any other team and is on pace to set an all-time record by the end of the season. On the road, it's only 25.4%, which is better than 4 other teams. It is pretty clear that the Mariners' offense suffers significantly when they're hitting at T-Mobile Park. On the flip side, the pitching staff has thrived at home. Seattle pitchers have a 2.73 ERA at home, which is by far the best mark in the entire league. In second is the Chicago Cubs with a 3.18 ERA. They are also in first by far when it comes to FIP with a mark of 3.10. On the road, though, their ERA is all the way up at .427, which is the 18th best in the bottom half of the league. Their road ERA is 1.54 points higher than their home ERA. Their FIP in away games is even worse at 4.41, which is in the bottom third of the league. That is a difference of 1.31 when you compare it to their home games. Once again, the strikeouts are also way up for pitchers at home. They have a 5% difference from their away performance, 27.1% at home and 21.7% on the road. Of course, this means that it is the opposing hitters as well that are struggling to perform at this park. These differences are huge for home and away splits. Under normal circumstances, a team's performance shouldn't be impacted this significantly by what ballpark they're playing in. Something strange is definitely happening at T-Mobile Park, something so strange it's almost unexplainable. To get a better idea of how the league in general deals with T-Mobile Park, we can look into a statistic called Park Factor. Park Factor aims to quantify the effects that different ballparks have on the game. It compares player performance in that park versus their performance outside of that park. This controls for player skill, and the players that play more often at the park will not skew the results one way or another. For example, Coors Field has an overall park factor of 112, which means players at Coors Field are 12% more productive offensively than they are on average. This 112 mark is the highest in the league. That overall park factor is broken up into all different aspects of offense. There's a park factor for hits, singles, doubles, triples, home runs, strikeouts, and even more. Coors Field has a home run factor of 108, meaning players hit 8% more home runs there than they do on average. Since the outfield is so large at Coors Field, the triples factor is all the way up at 200. It is for this reason why Coors Field could be referred to as a hitter's dream. On the flip side, the lowest park factor in the league is, you guessed it, T-Mobile Park. It has a park factor of just 91. This means that offense is 9% lower there than on average. When we break this up into different offensive categories, we get just about what we would expect. It has the lowest hit park factor, below average for home runs, and the most strikeouts out of any park. The most glaring factor for T-Mobile Park is the strikeouts. It is a strikeout factor of 115. Hitters strike out here at a much higher rate than they do anywhere else. So it's not just the Mariners that are struggling here, it's the entire league. This lower offensive production is most likely a result of being in a low-altitude, cold, damp environment that is the Pacific Northwest. Now, I'm not a meteorologist, but stick with me here. The marine layer, which is a thicker layer of air that is a result of temperature inversions over the ocean, results in a not-so-favorable environment for a hitter. The ball is just not going to fly as far as it does in most other stadiums. This is probably why less home runs are hit and why offense is harder to come by. This is the explanation that most people give when referring to T-Mobile Park as a pitcher's park, but the problem is that this explanation has one hole in it. It doesn't completely explain the massive increase in strikeouts. The spike in strikeouts is one of the biggest reasons why hitters fail to produce at this stadium. Why do hitters all of a sudden lose their ability to make contact when they step into the box at T-Mobile Park? In 2024, this trend is clear. This graph shows the 10 Mariners hitters with at least 100 plate appearances both at home and away. Josh Rojas, Ty France, and Luke Raley are the three lone players that make more contact at home than they do on the road. J.P. Crawford, Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, Mitch Haniger, Jorge Polanco, Dylan Moore, and Mitch Garver all do much worse at home when it comes to strikeouts. This trend is not only evident with the 2024 Mariners. If you go back the last 10 seasons, you will see a similar pattern. Out of the 20 qualified Mariners hitters from the last 10 years, only 6 of them had a lower strikeout rate at home. And as you can see in this graph, those players are not that far from the equilibrium line. This means that they are slightly better at home, and there isn't a significant gap between the two. The players in red, on the other hand, are on average a lot farther away, meaning their home strikeout rates are much higher than their away splits. T-Mobile Park is a huge reason why the Mariners are on pace to break the strikeout rate record for a single season. But why? How is this happening? As we said before, the climate is not making this significant of a difference, so it's time to go past the surface level into the intricacies of the hitter's worst nightmare. The first thing that separates T-Mobile Park from others around the league is the fact that it has a retractable roof. Roofs obviously allow for protection from outside elements and will give the pitcher an optimal climate to work in. Theoretically, this will allow the pitcher's stuff to play to its full potential. This makes somewhat sense logically, so I wanted to look into this a little further. I put all ballparks with roofs in one group and the rest of the roofless ones in another. When you look at the strikeout park factor for each of these groups, the difference is pretty clear. Non-roofed parks have a strikeout factor of around 98.5, while the ballparks with roofs have a factor of 103.5. So parks with roofs are at least somewhat associated with an increase in strikeout rates. This explanation has one problem though, as T-Mobile Park's roof is closed for only 22% of games played historically. Tropicana Field, the Rays' home ballpark, is closed 100% of the time, yet its strikeout factor is 8 lower than T-Mobile Park's. So while the roof may be associated somewhat with the strikeout rate, it's clearly not the only factor at play here. The next step is to go straight to the source, the players. What are they saying about this park? They are the ones experiencing it, so maybe we can find the answer there. As I was digging deep into the lore of T-Mobile Park, I came across some comments that were made by a player. That player was Teoscar Hernandez. Now, for some background, Hernandez spent all of 2023 with the Mariners. This 2023 season was the worst season for him offensively in the past 5 seasons. He finished the year with an OPS of 741, which is the lowest he's ever recorded in his career. This year with the Dodgers, he's putting up much better offensive numbers, nearly 30 home runs and an OPS of 819. And no surprise, that drop in production in 2023 can be traced directly back to T-Mobile Park. Hernandez's OPS at home was just 643 compared to a much better 830 on the road. His strikeout rate was 4% higher at home, 33.1% compared to 29.2% on the road. For some reason, I couldn't figure it out, Hernandez said. I couldn't feel good at the plate at home. He continued kind of talking about what it felt like, whether it was the batter's eye, whatever it was. 3 words stick out to me in these quotes, and those words are the batter's eye. After digging a little further, I realized that Hernandez is far from the only player to complain about this same issue. MLB insider John Morosi was formerly a Seattle reporter, and he recalled that many players had complaints about the batter's eye and the way that center field was constructed. The batter's eye, is that the missing piece to our puzzle? Maybe, but to start, it would be good to get an idea of what makes a good batter's eye and what makes a bad one. The batter's eye is a solid-colored, usually dark area beyond the center field wall that is the visual backdrop directly in the line of sight for a batter facing the pitcher. This backdrop in center field allows the batter to easily distinguish the ball in the air. Just imagine having to pick up a ball being thrown at 100 miles per hour in front of a bright white background. It would be much harder. And as you can imagine, a subpar batter's eye could lead to more swing and miss and more strikeouts. To get a better overall picture of this issue, maybe we can find some clues on the other end of the spectrum. The two ballparks that see the biggest decrease in strikeouts are Coors Field and Kauffman Stadium. These two ballparks have something in common. The distance to center field in both parks is very large. Coors has the largest center field, while Kauffman Stadium is in third. T-Mobile Park, on the other hand, is only 400 feet to center field, so it could be that the distance to center field has somewhat of an impact on the quality of the batter's eye. I was introduced to this idea in a Pitchers List article by Adam Solorio, who threw it out as a possibility, so I wanted to look at the numbers behind this to see if it does have any impact. This graph shows the overall relationship between the distance from home plate to center field and the strikeout park factor for each stadium. As you can see, there's a pretty clear negative trend in the graph. Now, you might say that this could be a coincidence, which could be true, but the probability that this relationship occurs purely by chance is just above 4%. This means that most likely there is some sort of association between the distance to center field and the effect on strikeouts in a ballpark. In the real world, this makes a lot of sense. The further the background is away from an object close to you, the less distracting the background would be. The closer and more intricate the background is, the harder it would be to distinguish the ball. Now, this data is not 100% accurate since this is the distance to the center field wall, not the distance to the batter's eye. Unfortunately, we don't have accurate measurements to the batter's eye of all parks readily available, so this will have to do for now. From what I gathered, it looks like the distance to center field, though, has an association with increase in strikeouts. A specific common complaint that hitters had on the batter's eye at T-Mobile Park is its slanted orientation. The wall is slightly slanted so that the left-hand side when you're looking at it is significantly farther back than the right-hand side. While it might seem like a negligible issue, there were some theories out there that suggest it messes with the batter's perception. The slant was also blamed to cause more of a glare when the sun hit the wall. And these theories are not new. Complaints of the batter's eye date all the way back to 1999 when the park first opened. 2002 marked the first time the Mariners tried to address this issue by planting 21 trees in center field in front of the batter's eye. The trees were then removed after the 2002 season after the players complained about that even more, so they didn't last too long. The wall was then painted black instead of the dark green that it was before to try to reduce the glare. This has seemed to work somewhat, although the severe slant on the wall still brings complaints to this day. And while it's hard to test this claim statistically, T-Mobile Park is one of the only parks to have this significant of a slant in their batter's eye. Fangraphs published an article in February earlier this year trying to answer this question: which parks are the hardest to see the ball in? In this study, they collected 3 different data points: umpire accuracy on edge pitches, hitter contact rate on pitches in the heart of the zone, and hitter's swing rate on chase pitches. Specifically, it looked how each ballpark affected these numbers. These all seem like good things to test. A good batter's eye will allow the umpire to see balls and strikes better, it will allow the hitter to make better contact, and it could help them chase less. The final result they got was a visibility score for each stadium that was made up of a combination between these 3 stats. T-Mobile Park finished as the 13th hardest park to see in, which is not the result I was looking for. This goes against many of the players' complaints about the issue. Other things that I found interesting with this test is that Coors Field was in the bottom 5 in terms of visibility score, which I was certainly surprised about. Coors Field has the second lowest park factor for strikeouts. Nationals Park is tied with Coors Field in strikeout park factor, yet it finished as the 9th hardest park to see in. So obviously this idea is still certainly up for debate. Nobody knows for certain what is behind the madness at T-Mobile Park. Now that you know all of the intricacies of the park, let's go through what a hitter experiences every plate appearance. Before you even go up to bat, the pitcher already has an advantage. It's either a nice warm day out or the roof is closed to give him perfect conditions. As we saw before, this is associated with an increase in strikeouts. The pitcher is already throwing 98 miles per hour with 14 inches of horizontal break. Good luck seeing that in front of possibly the worst batter's eye in the league. Even if you manage to square up a ball, most likely it will die on the warning track as it soars into the marine layer air. This process, over and over again, could also mess up the mentality of a hitter. Confidence is bound to dip, and although we can't quantify that, it seems like that certainly happened to a guy like Teoscar Hernandez. And when confidence goes down, that only multiplies the long list of effects that this park has on the hitter. T-Mobile Park stands out as an anomaly in the world of Major League Baseball. Its impact on hitters is profound, driving up strikeout rates and suppressing offense at the highest rate in the league. Seemingly everything is going against the hitters. There could be even more factors that play into the horror that the batters experience. The true explanation is still somewhat of a mystery, which is really what makes it a hitter's worst nightmare. Thank you for watching, subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.